The aliens thought they understood humans. They had studied them for years. They had watched them eat, sleep, and build their cities. They had seen how soft their skin was. They had noticed that humans had no claws, no fangs, and no armor. The Galactic Collective looked at humanity and saw only one thing, a prey species. This was their first mistake. Dr. Taiwu Kang stood behind a wall of energy glass, his hands pressed flat against the cold surface. He was a scientist who studied alien life forms. 3 months ago, enemy ships had captured him during a battle near the border. Now he was a prisoner on a space station far from Earth, but today his own suffering meant nothing. Today, he watched in horror as alien soldiers brought children into the laboratory. 12 human children. The youngest was only 4 years old. The oldest was 8. They came from a refugee camp on a destroyed colony world. They had no parents. They had no one to protect them. The lead researcher was a tall creature that looked like a giant insect. It had 6 legs, 2 arms, and large black eyes that showed no feeling. Its name was too difficult for human mouths to speak, so the prisoners simply called it the Doctor. "You will observe," the doctor said to Taiwu. Its voice was cold and flat. "You will record the results. You will help us understand what we see. What are you going to do to them?" Taiwu asked. His voice was shaking. "We will prove what humans truly are," the doctor replied. "Your species has caused us many problems in this war. Your soldiers fight when they should run. Your people resist when they should surrender. We do not understand this behavior. It does not match our data." The doctor moved closer to the glass. On the other side, the children huddled together. A girl of 7 years held a younger boy close to her chest. They were siblings. Taiwa had learned their names from the guards. The girl was Yuna, the boy was Doan. They had lost their parents in a bombing raid. "Humans are prey animals," the doctor continued. "You have no natural weapons. Your bodies are weak. Your young are helpless for many years. Every study confirms this. Yet your species does not behave like prey. So we designed an experiment." Taiwu felt ice form in his stomach. "What experiment?" The doctor made a sound that might have been pleasure. "We will expose your young to the greatest predator in the known galaxy. The Night Stalkers of Fate 9. They have killed every species that has entered their territory. They cannot be tamed. They cannot be reasoned with. They are pure hunters. No." Taiwu slammed his fists against the glass. "They're children. You can't do this." "We can," the doctor said simply. "And we will. When your young scream and break and beg for death, we will finally have proof. Humans are prey. Humans are weak. And this war will end because your people will finally understand their place in the galaxy." The soldiers began separating the children. Little Sahi, the 4-year-old, started crying. She reached for the older kids, but the aliens pulled her away. One by one, they placed each child in a transport pod. Yuna did not cry. She held Doan's hand until the very last moment. When they pulled her brother away, she looked directly at the observation window. She could not see Taiwu through the dark glass, but it felt like she was staring into his soul. Her eyes held no fear, only determination. The transport pods carried the children down to a planet's surface. Taiwu was forced to watch through monitor screens as each child was placed in a separate enclosure. The enclosures were large, with rocks and trees and water. They looked almost peaceful. Then the Night Stalkers came. Taiwu had seen pictures of these creatures before. He had read reports about their hunting abilities. But nothing prepared him for seeing them in person. They were massive. Each one stood 2 meters tall at the shoulder. They had 6 powerful legs that could run faster than any Earth animal. Their bodies were covered in scales that looked like black glass. Their eyes glowed with soft blue light, built for hunting in total darkness. Their mouths held 3 rows of teeth. The first Night Stalker entered Sahi's enclosure. The little girl backed against a rock, her whole body trembling. The creature moved toward her slowly. Its mouth opened slightly. In the observation room, The doctor leaned forward with interest. Then something unexpected happened. Sahi stopped trembling. She wiped her eyes with her small hands. And then she began to sing. It was a lullaby. A simple Korean song that grandmothers sang to help children sleep. Her voice was tiny and scared, but she kept singing. The Night Stalker stopped moving. Its head tilted to one side, then the other. It made a low rumbling sound deep in its chest. Slowly, very slowly, it lay down on the ground. It was still watching her, but it was not hunting her. In another enclosure, 8-year-old Minho noticed that his Night Stalker was limping. The boy looked at the creature for a long moment. Then he tore strips of cloth from his shirt and walked toward it. The Night Stalker growled. Minho did not stop. He knelt beside the massive predator and began wrapping its wounded paw. But it was Yuna who made Taiwu's heart stop completely. Her Night Stalker was the largest of all. A female with scars covering her body. A killer who had survived 100 battles. The creature watched Yuna enter the enclosure. It watched her look around. It watched her walk directly toward it. Yuna stopped 3 feet away from the monster. Then she sat down on the ground. She crossed her legs. She placed her hands in her lap. And she waited. The Night Stalker did not attack. Behind the glass, the doctor's antennae began to twitch. "This is not possible," it said. Taiwu watched the screens. He watched the children. He watched the most dangerous predators in the galaxy become confused by human kindness. And despite everything, he began to smile. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "You thought we were prey, but we're not. We're the species that looked at wolves and thought, 'I want one.' We're the species that pets sharks and names spiders. We don't run from predators." He turned to face the doctor. "We adopt them." 48 hours passed. The alien researchers watched their screens without rest. They recorded every moment. They analyzed every movement. And with each passing hour, they became more confused. The children should have been dead. The Night Stalkers should have killed them within minutes. This was what always happened. Every species that met these predators died quickly and painfully. There were no exceptions. Until now. Little Sahi had not stopped singing. She sang every song she knew. Children's songs, lullabies, even a few pop songs she had heard on the radio before the war took everything away. Her Night Stalker, a battle-scarred female, had not moved from its spot. It lay on the ground with its massive head resting on its front paws. Its glowing blue eyes followed the little girl wherever she went. When Sahi got tired and sat down, the creature made a soft rumbling sound. It was almost like a cat purring. Sahi smiled at it. "You like music?" she said. "I'll call you Nana. That was my grandmother's name." She liked music too. Nana's tail moved slightly. Just once. The researchers had never seen a Night Stalker move its tail for any reason except attacking. In his enclosure, Minho had finished bandaging his Night Stalker's paw. The creature had growled at first. It had shown its teeth. But Minho had not run away. He had spoken softly, the way his father used to speak to scared animals at the family farm. He had moved slowly and carefully. And when he finished, he had patted the creature's leg and said, "There, that's better." The Night Stalker had stared at him for a very long time. Then it had stood up and walked a slow circle around the boy. It sniffed his hair. It pressed its cold nose against his cheek. Minho laughed because it tickled. Now the creature followed him everywhere. When Minho sat down, it sat beside him. When Minho walked to the water, it walked with him. When Minho lay down to sleep, it curled its massive body around him like a protective wall. Minho called it Gom. It meant bear in Korean. But the truly impossible thing was happening in Yuna's enclosure. Yuna had not moved from her spot for 6 hours after arriving. She had simply sat and watched the giant Night Stalker. The creature had watched her back. Neither of them moved. Neither of them looked away. Then Yuna had yawned. She was tired. She was scared. She missed her brother. But she did not cry. She lay down on the ground and closed her eyes. When she woke up, the Night Stalker was lying beside her. Its huge body blocked the cold wind. Its warmth had kept her comfortable through the night. When Yuna sat up, the creature lifted its head and made a soft chirping sound. "Hello," Yuna said. "I'm going to call you Haru, it means day, because you kept me safe through the night." Haru chirped again. In the observation room, the doctor stood completely still. Its black eyes reflected the screens. Its antennae trembled. "Run analysis again?" it ordered. There must be an error in the data. There was no error. The next day, something even more strange happened. Yuna walked to the edge of her enclosure where a high wall separated her from Dohan's area. She pressed her hands against the barrier. "Dohan," she called. "Can you hear me?" On the other side, her little brother ran to the wall. "Yuna, I'm scared. My animal is too big." Yuna looked back at Haru. The massive creature had followed her to the wall. It was watching Dohan's enclosure with interest. "Don't be scared," Yuna said. "And they're not going to hurt us. I think they're lonely. I think nobody ever loved them before." Dohan's Night Stalker appeared behind him. It was slightly smaller than Haru, with bright silver marks on its scales. It was also watching through the wall. What happened next made every alien researcher freeze in shock. Haru walked forward and pressed her head against the barrier. She made a deep, rumbling call. "On the other side," Dohan's Night Stalker answered. They called back and forth several times. Then both creatures began scratching at the wall. Their claws, which could tear through metal, ripped the barrier apart in seconds. Within minutes, there was a hole big enough for a child to climb through. Dohan scrambled through immediately. He ran to his sister and threw his arms around her. They held each other tight while tears ran down their faces. Behind them, Haru and the silver-marked Night Stalker touched noses. Then both creatures lay down around the children, forming a protective circle with their bodies. "They broke the barrier," the doctor said. Its voice was strange, almost frightened. "They have never broken barriers before. They have never worked together before. They have never protected anything before." Taiwo was also watching the screens. He had not slept since the experiment began. His eyes were red and tired, but his smile had not faded. "You still don't understand," he said. "This is what humans do. We make connections. We form bonds. We find the scariest thing in the room and we try to be its friend." "That is not logical," the doctor replied. "Prey does not approach predators. Prey runs, prey hides. Prey survives by avoiding danger." Taiwo shook his head. "Then I guess we're not prey. We're something you've never seen before. We're a species that domesticated wolves and called them dogs. We tamed horses that could crush our skulls with one kick. We keep snakes and spiders as pets. We swim with sharks for fun." He pointed at the screen where Yuna and Dohan slept peacefully between two apex predators. "Those children aren't victims anymore," he said. "Those Night Stalkers aren't hunters anymore. You put them together thinking you would see death. Instead, you're watching the birth of a family." The doctor was silent for a long moment. "Increase observation," it finally ordered. "Monitor all enclosures at all times. Something is happening here. Something we do not understand." On the screens, Sahi was teaching Nana to play a clapping game. The massive predator was very bad at it. But Sahi just laughed and started over. "Again, Nana. You can do it." The Night Stalker tried again. And somewhere in the observation room, a young alien assistant made a sound that was almost like a laugh. The doctor turned to stare at it. The assistant quickly went back to work, but the damage was already done. The footage was already spreading. Scientists across the galaxy were already watching. And the story of the human children and their monster friends had only just begun. 3 months had passed since the experiment began. The Galactic Collective had planned to end it after 1 week. They had expected all the children to be dead by then. Instead, they had the most watched science project in galactic history. Every species with access to the communication network was watching. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds tuned in to see the impossible. Human children living peacefully. With the deadliest predators known to exist, the children had changed the Night Stalkers completely. Heian was 6 years old and had more energy than seemed possible for such a small person. She ran everywhere. She climbed everything. She talked constantly. Her Night Stalker, a young male she called Bomi, tried desperately to keep up with her. "Fetch, Bomi! Fetch!" Heian threw a round stone across the enclosure. Bomi's glowing eyes tracked it through the air. Then the massive creature bounded after it, 6 legs moving in perfect rhythm. He caught the stone in his mouth, careful not to crush it, and brought it back to Hawaii. She took it from his jaws and patted his nose. "Good boy, again!" Bomi's tail wagged. Night Stalkers were not supposed to wag their tails. But Bomi did not seem to care about what he was supposed to do. Sunwoo, who was 7, had made an even more surprising discovery. He had noticed that the Night Stalkers would sometimes scratch their backs against rocks. Their scales were hard, but the spaces between them could get itchy. "Come here," Sunwoo had said one day. "Let me help." He had used a flat piece of wood to scratch between the scales. His Night Stalker had frozen at first. Then it had made a sound like a deep sigh and lay down completely flat. After that, Sunwoo organized what he called spa days. Every few days, several children would gather with their Night Stalkers. They would take turns scratching scales, cleaning paws, and checking for small injuries. The predators would line up and wait patiently for their turn. Sometimes they would nudge forward, eager to be next. The researchers could not explain this. Night Stalkers did not wait patiently. Night Stalkers did not stand in lines. Night Stalkers did not let anyone touch them. Yet here they were, acting like family pets waiting for attention, but it was the situation with little Jiwoo that truly showed how deep the bond had become. Jiwoo was 5 years old. She was a quiet child who liked to draw in the dirt and make up stories about the clouds. Her Night Stalker, which she called Nara, was one of the gentlest of the group. Nara would lie still for hours while Jiwoo drew pictures on the ground beside her. One morning, Jiwoo did not get up. She lay on the ground with her eyes closed. Her breathing was fast and shallow. Her skin was hot with fever. The alien researchers watched with interest. This was new data. How would the Night Stalker respond when the child became weak and vulnerable? This was the moment predator instincts should take over. Nara stood over Jiwoo. The creature's glowing eyes studied the sick child. Its nostrils flared as it smelled her skin. Then Nara did something no Night Stalker had ever done before. She gently picked up Jiwoo in her mouth, carrying her the way a mother cat carries a kitten. She walked slowly and carefully to the water source. She set Jiwoo down beside the pool. Jiwoo opened her eyes. She was confused and scared, but Nara nudged her toward the water with her nose. "Drink," the creature seemed to be saying. "You need water." Jiwoo drank. Then she lay back down, too tired to move. Nara curled her massive body around the little girl. The creature's natural body heat was higher than human temperature. Through the night, Nara kept Jiwoo warm and safe. She growled at any other creature that came too close. She did not sleep. She did not eat. She only watched over her human dot. By morning, Jiwoo's fever had broken. She sat up slowly, her small hand resting on Nara's scales. "Thank you," she whispered. Nara made the soft chirping sound that all the Night Stalkers had started making around their humans. A sound of contentment. A sound of love. In the observation room, the doctor stood motionless for a very long time. "This changes nothing," it finally said. "The experiment proves that humans are strange. Not that they are strong." But even as it spoke, the other researchers were backing away. They were looking at the doctor differently now. Looking at the human prisoner differently. Dr. Taiwu Kang stood by the window with his arms crossed. "You wanted to prove we were weak," he said. "You wanted to break us. Instead, you gave those children something to love. And humans will do anything for what we love." The doctor's antennae twitched. "What do you mean?" "I mean that somewhere out there, human soldiers are looking for those children. And when they find this place, they will come. They will fight through anything you put in their way. They will never stop." They will never surrender. Because those are our children. Taewoo looked at the screens. Yuna was teaching Doan to ride on Haru's back. The massive Night Stalker walked slowly and carefully, making sure the boy did not fall. And now, Taewoo continued, those children have protectors you could never have predicted. You put them in cages with monsters. They turn the monsters into family. What do you think will happen when someone threatens their family? The doctor did not answer. On the screen, Minho was organizing the older children. They had figured out how to communicate with gestures and sounds. They could tell their Night Stalkers to sit, to stay, to come, to guard. 12 children, 12 apex predators. And a bond that was stronger than anything the collective had ever seen. You should run, Taewoo said quietly. When Earth finds out what you did, you should run very far and very fast. For the first time since the experiment began, the doctor felt something it had never felt before: fear. Commander Nayeon Park had not slept in 4 days. She stood at the front of the dropship, checking her weapons one final time. Behind her, 30 of Earth's best soldiers prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. For months, Earth's intelligence networks had searched for the missing children. 12 orphans taken from a refugee camp. 12 young lives that the enemy thought no one would miss. They were wrong. When the location was finally discovered, Commander Park had volunteered immediately. She had lost her own daughter in the early days of the war. She would not let these children be lost too. Listen up, she said to her team. We're going into the heart of enemy territory. Our target is a research station on a moon called Theta 9, intelligence says. The children are being held in an underground facility. One of her soldiers raised his hand. Commander, the reports also mention Night Stalkers. Is that true? Nayeon's jaw tightened. Yes, Night Stalkers were part of some kind of experiment. We don't know how many are still alive or if the children... She paused. We don't know the current situation. Our job is to get in, find survivors, and get out. Whatever we find down there, we bring our people home. The dropship entered the atmosphere with a scream of fire and metal. Anti-aircraft weapons shot at them from the ground, but the pilot was skilled. They twisted through the explosions and landed hard near the facility entrance. Go, go, go. The soldiers poured out of the ship. They fought through the outer defenses with speed and precision. Alien guards fell before they could raise alarms. Security doors were blasted open. Within minutes, they had reached the main laboratory. Taewoo Kang heard the explosions from his cell. He ran to the door and pressed his ear against it. Gunfire, human weapons. They came, he whispered. They actually came? The door to his cell exploded inward. A soldier in black armor stepped through, weapon raised. Dr. Kang? The soldier asked. Yes, that's me. The children are below. Level 5. You have to hurry. Commander Park herself led the team to Level 5. They expected heavy resistance. They expected locked doors and armed guards. What they found instead was chaos. The aliens were running. Not toward the humans, but away from something. Something that was roaring in the lower levels. What the hell is that sound? A soldier asked. They moved deeper into the facility. The lights were flickering. Emergency alarms were screaming. And that roaring sound was getting louder. They turned a corner and found themselves facing a massive door. It had been torn apart from the inside. Claw marks covered the metal. Commander Park raised her hand to signal a halt. Slowly, carefully, she stepped through the destroyed doorway. And then she stopped breathing. The room was huge, some kind of habitat or testing area. In the center stood 12 children. They were alive. They were healthy. They were riding on the backs of Night Stalkers. For several seconds, nobody moved. The soldiers stared at the children. The children stared at the soldiers. The Night Stalkers stared at everyone, their blue eyes glowing in the dim light. Stop! Minho, the oldest boy, jumped down from his Night Stalker and ran forward. He placed himself between the soldiers and the creatures. Don't hurt them, he shouted. They're not dangerous. They're our family. Commander Park slowly lowered her weapon. Her mind was struggling to understand what she was seeing. Your Damali? Yuna climbed down from Haru, helping Doan slide off safely. She walked toward the soldiers with no fear in her eyes. The aliens put us in cages with them, Yuna explained. They thought the Night Stalkers would kill us, but they didn't. They took care of us. They protected us. They love us. Behind her, Haru made a low rumbling sound. The massive creature moved forward until it stood just behind Yuna, watching the armed humans with suspicious eyes. "Ma'am," one of the soldiers whispered, "are those things purring?" Commander Park looked at the scene before her. 12 children, thin but healthy. 12 apex predators standing guard like protective parents. 4-year-old Sahi was still sitting on her Night Stalker's back, her small hands gripping the creature's scales. "I want to go home," Sahi said. "But Nana has to come with me." "Who is Nana?" Commander Park asked. Sahi patted the massive predator beneath her. She's mine. She adopted me." Commander Park turned to look at Dr. Kong, who had followed them down. "Is this real? Can these creatures really be trusted?" Taiwo nodded. "I've watched them for 3 months. The bond between the children and the Night Stalkers is genuine. These creatures have never harmed the children. They've protected them, fed them, kept them warm. I don't understand how it happened, but those animals are completely loyal to those kids." A growl came from behind them. The soldiers spun around, weapons raised. But it was just Minho's Night Stalker moving closer to his human. When Minho touched his arm, the creature immediately calmed down. "See?" Minho said. "They listen to us. They trust us. Please don't take them away. They'll die without us. And his voice cracked. "We'll die without them." Commander Park was a soldier. She had made hard choices her whole life. But as she looked at these children, at the hope and fear in their eyes, she knew there was only one choice to make. "Fine," she said. "We take everyone. Children and Night Stalkers. But if those creatures hurt any of my soldiers, I will personally put them down." Minho nodded quickly. "They won't hurt anyone. I promise." The evacuation was unlike anything in military history. 12 children walked out of the facility surrounded by 12 apex predators. Enemy soldiers who tried to stop them took one look at the Night Stalkers and ran away. When they reached the dropship, there was a problem. The ship was not designed to carry 12 large alien creatures. "We'll make it work," Commander Park said. Everyone squeezed together. "This is going to be a very interesting flight home." Doan tugged on her sleeve. She looked down at the 5-year-old boy. "Ma'am? There's something you should know. What is it?" Dahan pointed at Haru, who was carefully stepping onto the ship. "Haru is going to have babies soon. So actually you're bringing 13 Night Stalkers to Earth." Commander Park closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Of course she is," she muttered. "Of course she is." Behind her, little Sahi giggled. Nana made a sound that was almost like laughter too. And somewhere in the galaxy, the collective was about to learn a very important lesson. You do not mess with human children. And you definitely do not mess with their pets. 1 year had passed since the rescue. The galaxy would never be the same. The video footage from the experiment had spread to every corner of known space. Billions of beings had watched the human children tame the untamable. They had seen little Sahi singing to her Night Stalker. They had watched Minho bandage a predator's wound. They had witnessed Yuna sitting calmly before the most dangerous creature in existence. The story spread faster than any news had ever spread before. And it changed everything. For centuries, the Galactic Collective had called humans weak. They had pointed to human skin, which was soft. Human nails, which were short. Human teeth, which were dull. They had studied human bodies and seen nothing but a prey animal that had somehow learned to build ships. Now they saw something different. Now they saw a species that looked at monsters and saw friends. A species that responded to danger with love. A species that was so completely, utterly insane that it would try to pet a creature that could kill it in seconds. and that was far more terrifying than any claw or fang. On Earth, the 12 children had become heroes. They called them the First Riders. Schools named buildings after them. Artists painted their pictures. Parents told their stories to children at bedtime. But the 12 children did not care about fame. They only cared about their family. Yuna and Doan lived on a special preserve that Earth had created for the Night Stalkers. The land was wide and wild, with forests and mountains and rivers. Haru had given birth to 4 healthy pups, and they played with Doan every day. Taeyang no. Dohan laughed as the silver-marked Night Stalker tried to lick his face. At 6 years old now, Doan had become the pup's favorite playmate. They chased him around the fields until he fell down tired. Then they would pile on top of him and fall asleep. Yuna, now 8, was more serious. She spent her time learning everything she could about Night Stalker behavior. She kept notebooks full of drawings and observations. Scientists came from all over the world to ask her questions. "They're not just animals," she told them. "They're smart. They have feelings. They remember things." Haru still remembers the first day we met. She shows me sometimes in the way she looks at me. Munho, now 9, worked closely with the xenobiologists. He had become an expert at reading Night Stalker body language. When the creatures were happy, their scales would shimmer slightly. When they were nervous, their ears would fold back. When they wanted attention, they would make a soft clicking sound. "Humans and Night Stalkers can understand each other," Minho explained to a group of military officers. "It just takes time and patience. You can't force it. You have to let them choose to trust you." The military was very interested in the Night Stalkers. Some officers wanted to use them as weapons. But Commander Neon Park, who had been promoted after the rescue mission, shut down that idea immediately. "These creatures are not weapons," she said firmly. "They are partners. If we treat them as tools, we become no better than the collective." Little Sahi, now 5, agreed completely. She and Nana were inseparable. Special arrangements had been made so that Nana could accompany Sahi to her new school. The first day had been interesting. Some children were scared. Some teachers were nervous. But Sahi simply walked into the classroom with a 2-meter predator at her side and sat down at her desk. "This is Nana," she announced to the class. "She's my best friend. Don't be scared. She only bites bad people." Nana, as if understanding the joke, made her laughing sound. Soon, the other children were crowding around, asking to pet her. By the end of the week, Nana was the most popular student in school. The Galactic Collective watched all of this with growing fear. Their experiment had been meant to prove human weakness. Instead, it had revealed human strength. Not the strength of muscles or weapons, but the strength of hearts. They asked for peace talks. They had no choice. The war was turning against them. Human soldiers fought harder than ever, inspired by the story of the First Riders. And rumors had begun to spread about human armies riding Night Stalkers into battle. These rumors were not yet true, but they could be, and that possibility terrified the collective. The Peace Summit was held on a neutral space station. Leaders from the Collective and the United Earth Coalition met in a great hall. Commander Park represented humanity. The Doctor, leader of the original experiment, represented the Collective. Commander Park stood at the front of the human delegation. Behind her were the 12 First Riders. Behind them were 12 Night Stalkers. The Collective representatives could not stop staring. "You wanted to prove we were prey," Commander Park said, her voice calm and clear. "You took our children and gave them to monsters. You expected screams and death? Instead, you taught us something important." She stepped aside, allowing little Heian to walk forward. Bomi patted beside her, his tail wagging gently. "You taught us that we can make friends anywhere," Heian said in her small, clear voice. "You taught us that love is stronger than fear. You taught us that even monsters just want someone to care about them." Bomi sat down beside her and made his purring sound. The Doctor stared at the child and the creature. The most feared predator in the galaxy was sitting peacefully beside a 6-year-old girl. and the girl was petting it like a family dog. "We will accept peace terms," the doctor said finally. "We will return all human prisoners. We will withdraw from contested systems. We will end the war." Commander Park nodded. "And in return?" The doctor hesitated. Then, very slowly, it asked, "In return, will you teach us?" "Teach you what?" "How you do this." The doctor gestured at the Night Stalkers. "How you turn enemies into friends? How you make family out of strangers? How you love things that should terrify you." Commander Park looked back at the first riders. Yuna nodded slightly. "Yes," Commander Park said. "We will teach you. Because that's what humans do. We don't just survive. We don't just fight. We connect. We bond. We adopt." 10 years later, the galaxy had changed completely. Dr. Tae-Woo Kang, now old but still healthy, sat on the porch of his house on the preserve. Around him, Night Stalkers and their human partners went about their daily lives. Children who had grown up with the creatures played together. New pups born on Earth had never known any life except partnership with humans. The first riders had grown up too. Doan, now 15, was the youngest ambassador in human history. He traveled between worlds with Taeyang at his side, teaching other species about the bond between humans and Night Stalkers. Yuna had become a veterinary specialist, caring for exotic alien creatures. She had bonded with 3 more species previously thought untamable. Minho was a teacher now, training the next generation of riders. Sahi had become a therapist who specialized in helping traumatized children. Nana still went everywhere with her. They gathered sometimes, the original 12, to remember where they had started. This evening was one of those times. Around a fire on the preserve, they sat with their Night Stalkers. Stars filled the sky above them. The sound of alien purring mixed with human laughter. "Do you ever regret it?" Tae-Woo asked them. "What you went through?" Minho shook his head, his hand resting on Gom's neck. "They thought they were punishing us. They thought they were proving we were weak. But they just gave us the best friends we ever had?" From the pile of sleeping Night Stalkers, a head rose. One of Haru's children, now fully grown, padded over to Sahi and laid its massive head in her lap. Sahi stroked its scales gently. "See, monsters aren't scary. They just need someone to love them." Above them, ships from a dozen species crossed the sky in peace. The war was over. The galaxy was learning a new way. And it had all started with 12 children who refused to be afraid. The humans called what they had done many things. They called it kindness. They called it courage. They called it madness. But the truest word for it was the simplest one of all. They called it love,